there. Another Square and Compass Promotions live stream. I hope everybody is doing well. We'll give it a few minutes for the audience to find us. As always, I do these streams every Monday through Friday talking about Freemasonry, all the things I love about it, all the concerns I have about it. I've been a Freemason myself, as you know, since 2007. So I want to give it a bit of time. Today, I want to talk maybe about the manner in which we, as Freemasons, communicate. Once again, the chat is being funny. We communicate with our brothers and with our brethren, and especially and more specifically, how our secretaries and administrative officers communicate with our membership. As a former secretary, worshipful master, commercial master, the extent to which we communicate with our membership is something that is very important to me, does matter a lot to me. And so that is something I do want to discuss, especially because here in Canada, we are looking at a potential postage strike. So I think that's worth exploring. But that's coming up in the second hour. In the first hour, as always, it's just let's see who joins and what it is that they want to chat about. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Ask any questions you want about Freemasonry. I'll do my best to try to answer. Just writing in the today's quiz, today's poll question. And start the poll. And as always, let's just give it a bit of time. Let's see who jumps in the chat, who says hello. It's been great seeing a lot of growth on this channel lately and all my affiliated channels, social media, Patreon, all that good stuff. So thank you so much for that. I truly appreciate it, and I truly appreciate my audience, and thank you everybody who's here. And if you are new and you have not been on this stream before, then even better, I appreciate you being here as well. So thank you so much. So let's just give it a bit of time. Let's see who joins. Jump in the chat. Please say hello. Let me know how you're doing, and any questions you have about Freemasonry, any thoughts, any comments you have, let me know. I'll do my best to try to answer them, or anything else you want to mention. Things are good. I hope that you are doing well, raised eyebrow. I'm doing well over here. It is another day of kind of cold, rainy, crummy weather, but you know what? That's okay, because I get to be in here with everybody here, so that's all right. A little bit of cold weather is not going to kill me. We're kind of all, I think, in Windsor right now waiting for summer to show up again. So we'll give it a bit of time, but I hope you're doing well. Let me know how you're doing well, raised eyebrow. Let me know, and it doesn't have to be about Freemasonry per se, just communications in general. Are you still using mail postage at all? Or is your communications primarily through email, primarily through social media, telephone? In Freemasonry, we do have some older members who still are collecting info, collecting correspondence through the mail, though they're trying to push it away, I think. Good, I'm glad you're doing well, and as always, I am very happy that you are here. And we'll just give it a bit of time, as always, to see who joins us in the chat. Signal. Careful. You're going to end up being hacked by or you're going to end up adding a journalist to the chat accidentally. A little bit of political humor there. Okay, I don't know any lodges actually that use Signal. I think you're the first one I've heard of. How do you find it, out of curiosity? Do you find that it's convenient, a good app to use for communication? I'd be really curious to know what your experiences have been like with Signal as somebody who really has no experience with the app, either in terms of Masonic communication or just communication in general. So I'd be really curious to know what your experiences with it have been like. And welcome. If you are just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing, and let me know what it is that you want to chat with or chat about when it comes to Freemasonry. The second hour is going to be talking about Freemasonry and communication, the manner in which we as Freemasons communicate with each other, or more specifically, the manner in which our Masonic administrative bodies are themselves communicating with membership. It's very convenient. Communications are fast. Comms are ideally secure and encrypted, and it's easy to use. Okay, maybe we'll have to look into suggesting that to our membership. I'm sure Signal is available in Canada too, right? Not just the States. I've looked into Freemasonry, but I've heard of odd initiation rituals, etc. As far as I know, it's just Brotherhood of Men's Club, essentially. Forgive my ignorance. First, tea, by the way, or sorry, coffee, by the way. I drink a lot of coffee. I've got my coffee here with me, Dad. I love coffee. MG, welcome. I'm not sure if you've been on the chat before. If not, I hope you'll be so kind as hit the like and subscribe button. So we do have in Freemasonry rituals, not just for initiation, but we also have rituals when it comes to how we open and start our meetings and how we end our meetings. It's a ritual that, is the same for every meeting. Then we have rituals as it relates to being brought into Freemasonry, the first degree as well as the second degree and the third degree. I guess whether you want to define them as odd or not, kind of, odd is in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. What I'll put it this way is I never found any of the rituals. So I am, I joined Freemasonry in 2007. I'm a Master Mason, I'm a past master, and I'm an 18th degree Scottish Rite. I've never found any of the rituals in which I've been involved in, either, kind of organizing them or just being the initiate. I've never found any of the rituals to be anything that would be frightening or scary or anything contrary to what it means to be a good citizen or a good person, or anything like that. I mean, whether it's odd or not, I guess, like I said, I find people who climb mountains to be odd because you never get me to do that. So odd isn't as a beholder, but nefarious or bad or, again, contrary to what it means to be a good citizen, that is never something I've seen in any of my ritual work, either administering or taking part in or being a part of. And then what I guess I would say, oh no, but I mean odd, again, you can use the word odd. I mean, if odd just means deviation from normal, then just being a Freemason would be odd because, Freemasons are the minority compared to the general population, right? They'd never even mind the ritual work. And we're all, I'm an odd fellow, I suppose. Not odd fellow in terms of the group. I'm an odd person, I suppose. You don't have to be crazy to be a Freemason, but it helps, as they say. But yeah, I would say, going back to this idea of why the ritual is important, when I define ritual, what I define it as, ritual is a shared experience, the purpose of which is to create bonds of friendship or bonds of brotherhood So the fact that I've gone through the initiation ritual, as did as did my dad, as did my grandfather, as did everybody who's in the lodge room with me, as will everyone who's coming through Freemasonry in future. It creates those bonds and shared experiences and a brotherhood. Um, that's kind of why the ritual is so important and why the ritual remains. But no, MG, you can absolutely use the term odd. It's no worries. When you say brotherhood and men's group, I think, yeah, that is um, men's club. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a very kind of an accurate description. Although what I will say is there are also many Masonic female groups. There's the Order of Women Freemasons, which I don't think get near enough press, so I always try to give them a shout out. But there's the Order of Women Freemasons. There's also Eastern Star. There's also Rainbow. So Freemasonry for women is also a thing. So it's not exclusively a men's group. My lodge is exclusively male, but there's Freemasonry for women as well. Good day, Michael. I hope that you are doing well. By the way, Michael, I want to let you know. Um, to everybody in Michigan, by the way, we do have on June 7th our fish fry coming up. I can send you some info, RE tickets. It's June 7th at the Essex Masonic Temple. 4 o'clock. Tickets are $35. It's going to be a great time. As soon as I do Freemasonry, seriously, it does. I mean, that is always going to be MG in Freemasonry, the major challenge, which we as Freemasons are trying to balance, right? Or trying and I'm not saying I figured this out, by the way, because I don't think I have either. On the one hand, the example I've given, a million, awesome, Michael Moore, awesome. The example I've given before is, MG, if you have, let's say, a family recipe of some sort, like your grandparents gave it to your parents, gave it to you to give to your kids, and it's a family recipe passed down through generations, you're not going to necessarily put that on social media or share the recipe with the public or share the recipe with somebody who asks. Not because there's anything nefarious on the recipe, but rather because maintaining it within the family is a way that you maintain the bonds of the family from generation to generation. And in terms of Freemasonry, right, we have rings and we have stuff, and that stuff matters, but it's not as important as the ritual. The ritual is what we pass down to people. And so sharing it with others, even though honestly it's on the internet nowadays anyways, but for me, sharing it with people who are not Masons would in and of itself affect, my ability would affect the way I would view those bonds of brotherhood we have. But that does create the problem then, MG, as you're saying, for someone like yourself who's interested in Freemasonry, maybe considering joining, I'm not sure, just wanting to learn more, then how do you get the information you want to feel comfortable joining if we're not able or not comfortable sharing ritual? And I guess for me, the way I've kind of tried to find a balance in that is by saying I can't provide specifics about the ritual other than to say that for me, again, there's nothing that has been involved with that I would say goes against being a good citizen, which I care about, being a good person, being faithful to religious beliefs, and also talking about why I love Freemasonry, why I think there's a value to it, what it means to me, and just saying, that's kind of as far as I can go. And for better or worse, if you do want to join a Masonic lodge, there is kind of, for better or worse, a leap of faith kind of that you have to take a little bit in terms of kind of you meet the Masons, you get to know them, you learn the type of people they are, you learn the type of person I am, and hopefully that is sufficient to kind of demonstrate to you that the rituals are, benign, and can ultimately, are benign rituals that form bonds of brotherhood and friendship. That's kind of all you can do, you know? Nicole Cullis is back on the stream. Why, Nicole? Every time you're on here, you are always like knocking my appearance. What did I ever do to you? You know, my teeth are crooked. My nose is a disaster. That is very true. Absolutely. I guess I just wonder what the give and take of the brotherhood is. What do I give and what do I get out of Freemasonry? You just mentioned religion is being religious. Masonic is back. Welcome back. So being religious, MG, is not in and of itself a requirement. You have to believe in a supreme being, but what that supreme being is kind of completely up to you. So for example, we have Masons who are what I would describe as religious. They have a particular religious faith. So they may believe in, you know, they may be Christian, they may be Muslim, they may be Jewish, they may be Hindu, Sikh, they may be indigenous or First Nations in their religious beliefs. They may be Wiccan, you know, Wiccan, or, and it is, you know, as often the case, they may not have a particular religious belief like me. I don't necessarily believe in any particular religion per se, but I do believe in a supreme being. I do believe there is something greater than ourselves. In terms of what you give to Freemasonry, that really does kind of depend on yourself, for better or worse. You know, the requirement that you have to give is, in North America, I'm speaking specifically, because it's different depending on where you know, are in the world, Freemasonry, is your dues, which I'm a member of 5 lodges. My dues are between $100 and $200 per year, American. So, you know, but I'm a member of 5 lodges. That's a unique thing. Most people are a member of 1 lodge, and the dues are between $1 to $200 American per year. Can be higher, depending on the lodge, and what they charge. And then there's usually a one-time initiation fee, which when I joined, it was $500. And that goes to pay for expenses that relate to the building in which the lodge is meeting. That goes to covering expenses related to food, because one of the expectations is the Masonic Lodge will, you know, cover the cost of food and drink when you join, or not, but at each meeting, there'll be refreshments after lodge, there'll be dinner, sometimes before lodge as well, but there'll be dinner, there'll be drinks. There's a Mason who's called as Junior Warden who has to make sure that there's always food provided. And it goes to cover other expenses as well that are part of being a Freemason. So costs to district events, you know, if you want to hold a social function and you need to cover the costs of that, sometimes the lodge will cover the costs of the social function, like the banquet. You know, beyond that though, you know, the other thing about Freemasonry is when you say what do you get out of it? You know, what I've always said is you get the opportunity to fight to make the world a better place, and really that's it. Anybody who's telling you to join Freemasonry because you're going to get rich or famous or get a lot of money or get something out of it is probably scamming you, to be honest. Certainly, if you get an email or a message saying, like, join the Masonic Brotherhood and you will receive riches and fame and fortune, is full of baloney and is probably a scammer. What you get is the opportunity to make the world a better place or to fight for a better world by applying brotherly love, relief, and truth. You're not going to get anything else out of that. You know, some would say you'll get new friends, which you will. You'll get new brothers, which you will. But, you know, you'll get maybe a sense of purpose in what you want to do in life, which is certainly possible. But I've always, when people ask me now what it is that Freemasonry gives you, I always say it gives you the opportunity to fight for a better world. Because being part of a group, being part of an organization that welcomes, you know, men of all faiths, religions, beliefs, as well as something where you can support brothers, support those who are sick, support those who are ill, That is kind of what matters. I'll leave a link. So MG, I am on I am on Medium, which is like YouTube for written work. I'm going to leave a link to something I wrote about this, which I hope you'll check out and maybe follow me on Medium as well, about Freemasonry and about what I think it offers to people. Oh yeah, I cannot believe that. I guess the only occultist is here. Hello, occultist. I guess the only way it could happen would be through networking of other. So yeah, so there is a networking element, which can happen. I mean that is, and there used to be kind of a derogatory or derisive term in the 20s, actually 1920s, for people who would join not just Freemasonry but all these different organizations. Civic groups in order to increase their network. They were called like bury the joiners. And you would see, people who would join the Elks, the Moose, the Oddfellows, the Masons, the Rotary Club, because they wanted to run for the mayor of their small town, or because whatever it is they wanted to do, to gain a network. I'm not super opposed to this as an idea of somebody joining Freemasonry because they want to increase the network, because that's going to happen anyways, right? You're just going to know more people that you wouldn't know otherwise, and maybe some of those people, I don't know, are real estate agents, and you can talk to them about buying a house. So I'm not, super opposed to it in theory. It's just if that's the only reason you're joining, or the one reason you're joining, that will become a problem. Absolutely, MG. Just the way you said it is absolutely right. You can network anywhere. It's just another source. And honestly, in the 1920s and 1950s, when Freemasonry was so ubiquitous throughout the world, and North America, joining Freemasonry to network made a lot more sense. In 2025, you've got about 850,000 Masons in the United States. It's really, if networking is your goal, there's millions of better options. If making the world a better place is your goal, Freemasonry is a pretty good option there. How have you experienced Masonic burnouts? A lot. I went through one a couple of years ago. I probably still am going through one a little bit. Masonic burnout is real. It happens at different times. It usually is a compound issue, right? So if John Smith has, he's working 12-hour days and he has a wife and kids at home that are taking up, another 5 hours a day or whatever it is. And then on top of that, he's trying to balance Masonic duties. He's probably going to get burned out very quickly. But, the other thing that happens in the danger is if you don't have a family, if you have a job where it's 8-hour days, and that's it, you can feel like, well, I have more time so I can do more. And other brothers may feel like this guy has more time so he can do more. So they'll put more and more stuff onto you and require from you. And the result of that is going to be you burn yourself out incredibly quickly. So it happens a lot. Our lodge has, for a member in distress, a mechanism to cover his dues. Only the master secretary know who is asking. Yeah, in our lodge, it's similar. In our lodge, it's actually a benevolence chairman often is the person who knows what's going on and who has requested assistance and who needs help. So it's one of those situations where benevolence is one of those ways in which we make the world a better place. Or we fight to make the world better. By the way, MG, if you are still there, I do hope you will take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know how you came across our stream. Was it through a YouTube search? Are you already subscribed? And let me know how you are doing. And any other questions you have, please, I hope you'll take a few moments to ask them. As I said, I've been a Freemason since 2007. I certainly don't claim to know everything about Freemasonry, but I like to be able to explain at least my views on it, as well as the things I think can make for a successful Masonic career as well as a successful lodge experience. And I also love this stream because I get advice from other people on how they, would recommend what works in Freemasonry. Well, thank you for the algorithm then. I truly appreciate it. And I do, as I said, appreciate you being here. I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of people have interest in Freemasonry, and so it's fun to chat about it. And even those people who, I'm not saying this about you, MG, but even those people who've been on my stream in the past who've had negative views on Freemasonry, I still love talking to them as well, because if nothing else, it helps strengthen my my ability to respond to them, and it helps me better understand what it is I love about Freemasonry by having to chat with people who are not huge fans of it. That is something that I really enjoy. I can imagine, but I mean, good for you, MG, for it's the effort that matters, right? More than anything else. I mean, if you're trying to be a better man, then I think by definition you are a better man. Certainly, I think if you are the type of person who thinks you're already a good man and you've already accomplished all you need to be a good man or a better man, then you're probably a pretty bad person, to be honest. It's the constant struggle. This is something Freemasonry talks about, actually. It's the constant struggle to be better that makes us ourselves better. And to go through, I was very lucky growing up that I did have my father in my life. He's actually in the chat now. And I consider myself very lucky to have that, to be around in the home. And so I did, get to grow up with a good kind of role model as to what it means to be a good man. And it sucks that not everybody had that. But again, it sounds like, MG, you're trying to break that cycle and be better, and that's all you can do, right? What's the, again, not religious per se, but there's this quote somebody said, which is, I'm trying to think how it goes. God, I'm not always sure that I know what the right thing is, but I hope it pleases you that I try to know what the right thing is. So I think there's a good attitude in that one. Well, good. It is National Tea Day, I guess. I mean, I still am a coffee drinker now. When I was younger, I used to drink tea quite a bit. But now, for the last probably 15 years, almost 20 years, I've been a coffee guy, and I love coffee. Coffee's my favorite thing in the world. It makes me happy. I think so. I'll give you my opinion, MG. This is exclusive to me. I like to think it would. I certainly think for me, it helped me expedite the process of being a better person, a better man. By all means, though, I don't think it is the exclusive way to expedite that process, right? I think you can. how do I put this in a way that makes sense? Um, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Like, so there's this book by an author called Chuck Klosterman, which I really like, and it was called Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs, which is a book from like 2001. But at the start of the book, he says, he talks about how for most philosophy is, studying Plato, studying Kant, studying Hume, studying all these famous philosophers. And he says um, he studies pop culture. He studies, um, Saved by the Bell, which is a great TV show, by the way. He studies the real world. He studies modern pop culture, and through that, he understands the world. He says there's a million different ways to understand the world. This is how, I do by studying these things. For me, it's like that with Freemasonry. Freemasonry is one way to expedite the process of better understanding the world and trying to be a better man. Some people get that through joining sports teams. Some people get that through studies. Some people get that through a million different ways. So, just as MG says, another source. So, in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, I do think it would help expedite the process or at least provide you with another pathway. So, if you're interested in it, you talk to your local lodge and you kind of go from there. Um, I, yeah, and like everything else, you kind of have to figure it out for yourself as you go. But I do very much appreciate you being here. If you don't mind my asking, where are you from? Like, what part of the world? The States, Canada? Most of my audience comes from the States, which is why I ask. Oh, Dad asking the question, tea per capita consumption is what country? I'm going to guess China. Oh, so you're Ontario. Okay, so you are same neck of the woods as me. I am from, well, I was born in Winnipeg, but I'm from Windsor, Ontario. Uh, the either the end of Canada or the beginning of Canada, depending how you define. If I recall correctly, I could get the numbers of it wrong, but I think there's approximately 28,000 Masons in Ontario, give or take. 28.5, I think. Um, BKC Masonic Master. I've heard of that coffee before, so I really want to check it out. Um, the GTA. Well, that's where the most Masons are in Ontario, anyways. That's where, I mean, which makes sense, right? That's where the most people are. So that's where the most um, Grand Lodge or Masonic lodges are, I should say. There's, several, obviously, none downtown. There's one in Brampton. There's a Masonic lodge there. I can't think of the addresses off the top of my head now in terms of where they all are located, but there's a bunch. Hamilton is where the Grand Lodge is located. So, um, I actually really enjoy one thing I've not done a lot of research on, but I'm trying to do more on is Northern Freemasonry, like the small town Northern Masonic lodges, which they can be very isolated. When I say northern, I'm including like Kenora lodges closer to, let's say, the Manitoba border, just because there are some really there are a lot of lodges in that area, and small town Freemasonry, Northern Freemasonry, can be really, really fun to explore. So it's on my list of things I want to learn more about. Maybe take trips up to that area in the world. Who knows? So we're going to just keep asking questions to keep chatting. We'll see who else joins. As always, the first hour is just seeing who joins and what they want to chat about. And then the second hour is us chatting about specific topics. Today, it's going to be communication between Masonic lodges, Masonic bodies, and their membership, and the different ways that can happen. Oh, I was wrong. Look at Dad. China produces the most tea, but Turkey is the most consumed per capita. Hello, Ryan. How's it going? How's Coffee Club this morning? It's good to have you join once again. I hope your Coffee Club is going well. We got 6 votes. How do you most commonly communicate with your Masonic lodge or body? So far, email is at 50%, social media is at 33%, telephone is at 17%. I did have somebody say that the way they communicate mostly with Freemasonry was through Signal, which is a new thing. For me, I'm not really familiar with Signal much, except for the fact that it was on the news for some not so good reasons. But apparently it's a very convenient way to communicate. So maybe it's worth Masonic lodges looking into Signal a little bit more as a potential communication avenue. Depiction. I'm not sure what depiction means, Ryan, but still, it's good to have you here as always. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody who's joining, I do hope you will be so kind as to hit the like button and subscribe button. In about 20 minutes, we're going to start on our main topic, our main focus, which is going to be communication between Masonic administration specifically and lodges or Masonic membership. Everyone is good. That makes me happy. I am happy. Everyone is good. We're getting close to the fish fry. It's about 2 weeks away, which is crazy to think that it's so close. But welcome everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. Email is at 50%, social media at 33%, telephone is at 17%. Please take a moment, hit that like button and subscribe button. Anything you want to chat about, let me know. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. Even if it is a more negative thought, that's okay. I'd still love to hear it. I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. It'll be fine. I've sold a few more tickets. I got to send an email out to people very shortly, um, talking about kind of getting everything organized. So it should be a lot of fun, as always. I'm sure it's going to be a blast. Older members of the craft. So that is one of the issues that we're absolutely dealing with, which is a lot of older members are themselves not computer literate. They still prefer postage, otherwise called snail mail in some circumstances. I would be really curious to know, and I've not seen any stats on this, what percentage of Masons are receiving lodge correspondence via snail mail or old-fashioned postage. Yeah, I mean, the oldest Masonic symbol must be the square and compass from Rose Hall Chapel in 1623, if I got the date correct. 16 something or other up in Scotland. Um, might be the oldest Masonic and Freemason. Might be the oldest speculative as well as operative Masonic symbol. But if anybody hasn't seen any stats as to, once again, the number of Masons who are receiving correspondence via mail versus the number which are receiving correspondence through electronic sources, I'm going to guess it's about 90-10, 90 electronic, 10% kind of snail mail. Or maybe even you have to include social media in that in some cases. So good. Good. Everybody keep up the good work. It's wonderful to see everybody going out there. And as always, these things matter in Freemasonry. It's not just about the ritual is just the start. It really is. The it's about the coffee clubs, it's about the fish fries, it's about the celebrations, it's about the banquets. It's got to be about everything. The ritual really is just the start. It's like in professional wrestling. I saw somebody say, and they're absolutely right. The matches are just the start. In Freemasonry, the ritual is just the start. It's kind of about everything else that comes with it. I hope everybody is doing well. If you're watching this, we're going to give it, like I said, another 15 minutes. Then we'll start on the main topic, which is communication amongst and between the membership. Why it's important to think about and ways we can potentially grow that or create more efficient and better communication, because communication is a major challenge. I mean, people are more likely, honestly, to be able to, like, email is more convenient, it's cheaper, it's free to send, but you run into the problem of people getting thousands, in some cases thousands, certainly for many people dozens of emails per day. Are they going to, in the getting of dozens of emails per day, be able necessarily to pick out the Masonic email from the work and personal emails and spam emails that they get? Versus a letter, people are more likely to open those. We'll talk about that. Again, once we get to the hour mark, we'll talk more about that. Positive communication, I agree. The Masonic Trestle Board is an important symbol. I agree, Ryan McKee. Positive communication is a huge part of why I think most people enjoy people, right? And when I say positive, I would not even say positive, I would just say effective communication. Getting the message that you need to get to the people who need to receive it, whether it be the membership, whatever it might be. That stuff is critical. And welcome. If you are just joining us, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you will take a moment to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, jump in the chat, say hello, let me know how you're doing. Any thoughts you may have, positive or negative, I'd love to hear them. Um, any thoughts you have about Square Income's promotions? I'd love to hear those as well. It was a great stream yesterday. It's been a great stream today. It's been wonderful to have some new people join. Thank you so much to everybody who's joined our stream thus far. I truly appreciate it. And hopefully when it comes to Freemasonry, the communication is both positive and hopefully it's both positive and effective. You kind of need both of those things, right? You need positive communication in terms of you're saying stuff that's positive towards others, and you also need effective communication. Because if you have a positive message, but it's not getting to the people that it needs to get to, that I think in of itself is a problem. So we're going to give it, like I said, another 15 minutes before we jump in and start on our main topic, which again is going to be communication amongst members. By the way, though, I do want to say I had an incredible interview yesterday with Core Power Yoga, which is a place I love in a town I love, Glenview, Illinois. I mean, Core Power Yoga is around the world, or around North America, I should say, or specifically around America. But I had a great interview with them, and we talked about ways in which we can integrate mindfulness practices and even some yoga practices into our Masonic Lodge experiences. That episode premieres on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me just leave the link for the premiere page. Ariana Armando. So I'm just going to share that link with people. Let me see if I can track it down now. I do think there are a lot of ways that we as Freemasons can integrate mindfulness practices into Masonic meetings, breathing exercises, things of that nature, at both the start and the end of our Masonic meetings, as well as maybe organizing, an outing for our Masonic brothers to a yoga studio, or on the opposite side of it, bringing a yoga instructor into our Masonic lodges. We could do a lot of different fun things like that. I think it would be a blast. So I would encourage everybody to give it a thought. Ways in which you can incorporate mindfulness practices into our Masonic meetings. And if you have any ideas, put it in the stream, and check out the episode Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, episode 177 of Square and Compass promotions. Channels of communication are incredibly important. You can even ask the question, what is communication? What does that mean? Communication in terms of communicating a ritual in a Masonic lodge, communication in terms of a master effectively communicating his strategy, what he wants to see for the year, or communication in terms of making sure our brothers know what's happening in lodge. So if you have the change of time in a meeting because you have some type of special situation, are you communicating that change of time effectively to your members so they know when to actually show up? Coffee and donuts, tea and scones. Once again, bringing in the tea thing. I wonder if there's Masonic tea. I'm kind of curious about that. Let me check that out. in honor of International Tea Day? I bet you there is. I'd be willing to, it'd be kind of fun to check it out and learn more about it. If there is a Masonic tea. Let me just check this out. And if there is, I'll let you know. I'll put it in the chat. There's Masonic coffee, as our good friend Courtney pointed out, and thank you, Courtney. Let's see if we can find Masonic tea production. There is a Fortnum and Mason tea. Chinese export. There's a Masonic teapot at the Hood Museum in Dartmouth. There's an early 19th century. Here, I'll leave the link to this in the chat. So that's interesting. You're going to click on that link. You can learn about a Masonic teapot anyway, so that's something. It's funny, I was at the Museum of Art in Chicago, famously with the famous one with the two lions in front, and I did a search and I came across and found, so that was really, really cool. They had a Masonic, I think it was a Masonic clay pot or something in their catalog of items. So that was really, really cool to check out. It's fun when you go to a museum, you would be amazed how many times you see Freemasonry in different museums. I found Freemason and Masonic references in a ton of museums in Chicago. The Field Museum, the Planetarium, the Adler Planetarium. So that was really, really cool. It's really fun to see these things kind of grow, and to see Masonry and Freemasonry referenced in so many different contexts. And yeah, if you're in a museum, especially if it's a museum of the history of a town, like if you're in the museum that examines the history of the Masonic, the history of the town in which you're located, you're probably going to see some things related to Freemasonry, because Freemasonry was so vital and so important when it came to the formation of so many small towns across America and Canada. I remember I was in Chatham. Chatham is a small town of, how many people exist in Chatham? Let's just do a quick search. Chatham, Ontario, populate. So Chatham is a population of 108,000, which is actually more than I thought. They have a tiny museum focusing on the history of the town, and in that town you see Masonic aprons and discussion of Masonic lodges. You see the same thing in Woodstock, Ontario. You see the same thing in big towns like Chicago, the Glenview, which is a small town. Historical Society has Masonic references in their history center. Glenview, Illinois has a population of 46,000, and they have Freemasonry reference there. So museums often have a ton of really fascinating Masonic references if you're willing to look. The Iowa Masonic Library Museum, Courtney providing that one. Awesome to mention that one. I've never been there before, but maybe I'll have to see if I can find a way to check it out, because I absolutely agree it would be an incredible, I'm sure it'd be an incredible and notable example of an early Masonic library and museum. So we're going to give it 5 more minutes, see who joins, and then we'll start once again on our main topic, which today is going to be modes of communication between Masons specifically, not exclusively, but modes of communication, or even if you want to use the term mediums of communication between Masonic lodges, Masonic administration, and membership. And that could be at the Grand Lodge to the lodge level. That could also be from the lodge secretary to the membership level. So there's a lot of different kind of places and levels at which you could take that. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Once again, I hope you will be so kind as to hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to give it another few moments, and then we will start with the main topic, main subject, which is communication. By the way, I heard the White Sox won yesterday, so I've kind of adopted the White Sox as my baseball team. I'm not a huge baseball fan, but nonetheless, congratulations, White Sox. I got to say, there are some. That's the. Well, so obviously, we don't need Canada Post to communicate through signs and symbols, but do we need Canada Post to communicate the change in a meeting time, especially if, um, that brother maybe does not himself have um, access to the internet, or doesn't like the internet, or just doesn't use the internet, or is a Luddite. There are a few of those actually, Masonic. I tried doing one of those a little while ago, but different groups have created. But I think, we talk a lot in this channel about Freemasonry in the digital space, and I 100% think that we in Freemasonry need to be more in the digital space. And that one way we could be is absolutely to absolutely to do more digital tours of our buildings, because people want to see these buildings. They love the architecture, love the history of them, but I mean, it's tough to travel to it, right? Like, that's where the challenge is. So I think Masons need to spend more time with digital meetings and not digital meetings, but digital tours of buildings, digital engagement with the public in general. I think that's pretty critical, pretty key. Okay, I think we can get started now. So the reason I wanted to discuss this particular topic is because Canada Post has issued a strike notice for May 23rd. This was posted and updated May 20th, so yesterday. Canada Post have issued a strike notice to start on Friday, May 23rd at 12 a.m. local time. On Monday, Canada Post said it was notified by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers that workers for both urban and RSMC, rural and suburban mail carriers bargaining units issued strike notice. Operations will continue as usual until then, but Canada Post warned that a labor disruption would affect the millions of Canadians and businesses that rely on the postal service. So, for me personally, right, I joined Freemasonry in 2007. And at that time, even then in 2007, I would say the majority of our Masonic brethren were receiving their information and communications electronically, either via, and that time it was almost exclusively email. But there was still a significant percentage that were receiving their summons and their trestle board by mail. I'd probably say, as a rough estimate, it was probably about 70-30%. 70% receiving it electronically, 30% receiving it by mail. And nobody was receiving communications. I'm sure there was some, but really nobody was receiving communications via Facebook or social media or communicating with each other through social media. So if the secretary was sending out a summons or had something important to send out, it would be primarily through email with a not, with a not inconsiderate or not, maybe a 30% receiving it through email, through snail mail. Since 2007, and since I became a secretary, that number has changed. The number receiving it by email has increased, and the number receiving it by regular mail has decreased. I would say at this point, of my lodge, which has, let's say, 61 members, 4 receive via snail mail, the rest receive electronically. So it's 4 by snail mail, the rest electronically. But there is also a percentage of lodges that are moving to another system now, which is instead of emailing out or sending, even instead of sending out a trestle board or a summons, what is done is they post the trestle board or they post the summons to one specific location online. Usually it's like a lodge website. And if I, as a member, wish to access it or review it, I need to go to that website, input my, a username or password that I create, and then I'm given access to a backend, which is exclusively for members. And I can see not just the most recent trestle board, but I can see back issues of the trestle board. So so that even saves another step for the secretary, right? Instead of emailing the summons or the trestle board to the membership list, each member is given a password and a username and access to a site, and it's up to them to check every month that site to see the updated trestle board. So long as they know, okay, the new trestle board or summons is published the first of every month, they know to go to that site and that location and check it out that way. And also, they're given, encouraged to check it every, let's say, couple weeks, because if there is some type of announcement, something special, some type of situation that requires an additional announcement outside of the normal trestle board, they know to check that every couple weeks and see if any new announcements have been put on there, right? So or a lot of lodges for communication are moving to Facebook groups or social media groups for the same reasons. Creating a Facebook page is free. You can set it to private, and you can post on there your announcements, which can be, again, private just for members. You need to be invited to join. You can post links to your trestle board on that as well. So again, it's become a situation where you're seeing not just an increase in electronic communications and a decrease in physical communications, but you're seeing an increase in specifically the types of electronic communications, where you're seeing, for example, whereas before electronic communication really did mean email exclusively, now electronic communication means posting the summons or trestle board to one central electronic site and relying on the brothers to go to that site, check it out, and learn, and review what's been posted there, or the use of social media groups that are exclusive for members, where information announcements are posted, or even Signal or WhatsApp chats, where again, there's been a situation, let's say, heavens forbid, knock on wood, there's a flood at the Masonic building and they have to cancel a meeting for whatever reason. They can post that on a Signal chat or a WhatsApp chat, or a Facebook post or an announcement on a website, or send an e-blast through, for example, MailChimp. There are a lot of services now that have these options, and advise them right away. So with all of that being said, and I'm going to assume at this point communication between lodges and membership is probably 90% electronic, 95% electronic. Electronic meaning the majority being email, followed by centralized locations, centralized web pages, and you need a username or password to get access that information, to Facebook groups and social media groups, to WhatsApp or Signal chats where you're just posting your information, right? That is all kind of under the umbrella of electronic, and actual quote unquote snail mail, posting things on, putting an actual stamp on an envelope and mailing it out, is probably about 5%. Though I would say another form of communication that sometimes gets overlooked, which is another type of, Luddite, physical communication, is postage boards or mail slots in Masonic temples. If you have a Masonic building, you may have a members exclusive section where you have your cork board, and lodges can post posters or notices about things that are happening there as well. But that probably accounts for maybe 3% of Masonic communication, if that. CD, working but listening. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope that maybe this will give you some different ideas. I don't disagree with that, Masonic. I wish more used HTTPS, MailChimp. And then I will say, if they're using MailChimp, it's HTTPS. If they're using Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, it's HTTPS. But I wish more lodges themselves used HTTPS. It's a good bit of insight. But are we missing out on an opportunity with that, as we, for reasons associated with cost and reasons associated with convenience, move in Freemasonry more and more towards electronic communications in various forms? Are we missing out on an opportunity to potentially utilize postage and utilize more physical forms of communication, right? And this is back from a article I wrote in 2021. While modern communication often takes place electronically, classic snail mail still represents for many Canadians an important mode of communication. In 2019, Canada Post delivered 7.9 billion units of mail. And if I go to the more recent version, annual report 2024. Sorry, the 2023 is the most recent one I've got. Excuse me. Let me see if I can track down. I had that number a second ago. Let me just see if I can track it down. So in 2023, Canada Post delivered 2.2 billion letters in 2023. So again, and that's just letters. That's not including other units of mail. In 2006, Canadian households received an average of 7 letters per week. In 2023, it was 2 letters per week. So you are seeing a reduction, a significant reduction in, the number of letters and pieces of mail that the average Canadian is receiving. But, 2 per week, 2.2 billion letters is nothing to sneeze at, right? While it may seem old-fashioned, many Canadians, the sending and receiving of traditional mail represents a special ceremony. In a Gallup poll taken approximately 2020, 94% of respondents said they love receiving a physical letter in the mail from someone they know. Not only does getting a letter in the mail make people happy, but it's just the thought of checking the mail that is something that 41% of Americans, this is from America, look forward to doing. The feeling you get after opening the mailbox and finding a personal letter addressed to you among all the junk mail and bills is something that we need more of, not less. And from 2018, 94% of people love getting letters in the mail. Another report found millennials, Gen X, and boomers all reported similar levels of satisfaction with the Postal Service. And 75% of millennials said that it's still nice to receive personal mail, and that it makes them feel special. While many lodge secretaries, myself included, rely heavily on email or electronic mail for member communication, an increase in the use of physical mail, and you could even attach Masonic specific postage stamps, could help increase attendance and interest in lodge. Traditional mail holds a special place in the hearts of many, and the stamp used to send traditional mail represents an opportunity to promote the craft. Masonic lodges, Grand Lodges, and organizations should give serious consideration to holding special snail mail or Masonic mail initiatives. So, for example, maybe twice a year, instead of sending mail to people exclusively by email, or instead of sending messages exclusively via electronic means, twice a year, the lodge does a special thing where every member gets a letter, right? Every member gets something in the postage. Whether they receive it by email, whether they receive it on some type of, forum, whether they're part of a social media group or not, they still receive a physical letter in the mail, right? Because as we said here, where is it again? I just want to pull it down one more time. While it may seem old-fashioned, many Canadians and many Americans, the sending and receiving of traditional mail represents a special ceremony. In a Gallup poll taken in 2018, 94% of respondents said that they love receiving a physical letter in the mail from someone they know. Not only does getting a letter in the mail make people happy, but just the thought of checking the mail is something that 41% of Americans look forward to doing. So that could mean, in my lodge, we have 61 members. 41% would be approximately 25. 25% of our membership looks forward to receiving a letter. So how much more would they look forward to receiving a letter from their Masonic lodge specifically, as well as from, anybody else? Maybe you could even do things to gussy it up, like use a wax seal. Harry, I get bills both by mail and computer. I like the mailed bills better as I can understand them better. And that's true as well. You can understand more of what is being said. Spirit of justice with the new logo. What is going on? Do people feel like they may understand the actual what's what I'm looking for? The actual physical more than the actual like physical more than the electronic. I think that's ultimately what's the case. But Spirit says WhatsApp. So maybe if you guess it up, you could use fancy paper. You could use some type of wax seal. You could use a fancy postage stamp of some sort. Make it use fancy font on the envelope. If 41% of Americans look forward to checking the mail, if 94% of respondents in this poll said they love receiving a physical letter in the mail, you feeling, as they say here, the feeling you get after opening the mailbox and finding a personal letter addressed to you is something we need more of, not less. So maybe what Freemasons could do is, again, use twice a year, spend a bit of money, buy fancy stationery, buy fancy envelopes, buy fancy paper, create Masonic postage stamps, which you can do, by the way. You can take a picture of your Masonic lodge and create a postage stamp that you can use for your Masonic building or affixed with your Masonic building or Masonic seal. In Canada, you can do that. I'm sure you can do it in the States as well. And, send out these letters. Also, you're reducing the risk of scamming by doing it this way. And again, I understand for many Masonic lodges, for their issue, it's going to be the cost of doing that. The cost of the paper, the cost of the envelopes, the cost of the stamps. But twice a year, I feel like many lodges could afford that. And it could, create something special for the brethren, especially for those brothers who maybe they have moved out of jurisdiction, they live very, very far away. They're getting they're getting their communications via email, and that's really great. But how nice would it be if they were to also receive a letter in the mail? Just saying, it's wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to send this letter to you. It lets us know we're still thinking of you, especially again if it's on a nicer bit of, if it's in a nicer envelope, a nicer bit of stationery, has maybe a wax seal if you want to be super fancy, And this is not just for the older members, by the way, who maybe have a certain relationship to snail mail. A 2018 report found millennials, Gen X, and boomers, so even millennials, all reported similar levels of satisfaction with the Postal Service. And 75% of millennials said that it's still nice to receive personal mail and that it makes them feel special. So a lot of people may hear this as an idea and think to themselves, oh, this is a boomer thing, this is an old man thing or an old member thing. No, 75% of millennials getting a letter addressed to them makes them feel special. So then does it make sense that we start to, try to include more physical mail, snail mail in our communications with our brothers? I put a link to the article that I wrote, which I hope you guys will check out and follow on Medium. Yeah, I kind of wrote that because again, and I'm thinking about this again nowadays, because again, Canada Post, one more time, pursuant to an article written on May 20th, or excuse me, written on May 19th, updated on May 20th. Canada Post workers have issued a strike notice to start a strike on Friday, May 23rd at 12 a.m. local time. On Monday, Canada Post said it was notified by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers that workers for both urban and rural mail carriers issued a strike notice. So, mail service will be affected, mail service will be disrupted. To what extent will that affect our Masonic brothers who still rely on snail mail to get that mail, to get that postage? I think it's worth absolutely considering. And once, and hopefully the strike, it doesn't last too long if there is a strike, hopefully what we will see is maybe Masons returning and creating special occasions where they send out mail the old-fashioned way and not rely so exclusively on our electronic means. Not that the electronic means aren't valuable. Again, it's convenient, it's less labor intensive, it's cheap, it allows for communications to be instantaneous or quickly, especially if there's a last minute change, you need to communicate as fast as possible. But it does also have a less personal feeling for a lot of people. It's easier for the electronic mail to get lost in the shuffle of hundreds, if not thousands for some people, of emails. So, there is a trade-off. It's interesting, even in this, when I ask this question, how do you mostly communicate or receive communications from your Masonic body? Again, we have 8 votes. Mail postage is at 0%. Email is at 38%. Social media is at 50%. Telephone is at 12%. And that even represents a huge difference. I feel like if I had done this poll in 2008 or 9 or 2007 when I first joined and asked the same question, you would see email being around 70%, mail or postage being around 25 to 29%, and social media and telephone being at 1 to 2%. The fact that now social media is at the highest, even that represents a change in the nature of electronic communication amongst brothers, and that's something worth exploring and worth keeping up with as well. But let's say I'm going to end this poll, and this kind of goes to what I was saying. I'm going to do another poll question. How would it feel, or how would you feel if you received a handwritten note, addressed letter in the mail from your Masonic lodge? Special, wouldn't care, don't know. Oops. Gosh darn it, where did it go? All right, I was trying to write a poll question and now it's gone missing. Let me try this one more time. One more time. How would you feel if you received a personal letter from your Masonic lodge via postal service? Special, wouldn't care, don't know, never happened. I'm going to start that poll. We'll see how people answer. But yeah, I guess this just goes back to my idea of we have a Canada Post strike happening. Canada Post itself has seen, a significant drop in the number of people, not Masons, but just people receiving mail. You are seeing an increase in the use of electronic means for communication, both in terms of, email, as well as a vast increase in people using social media to communicate, as well as, some cases, announcements and postings on websites that people access with a password, and as goes the world, so goes Freemasonry. Freemasons are also communicating less and less through regular mail. Is that presenting us with an opportunity to try something different? Old things being new again, to try to return to postage, to try to return to mail, things of that nature. Stickman1, what is up, Stickman? I hope that you are doing well. I feel like I remember you from previous streams, right? I hope that you're doing well. Welcome back. I hope you will hit the like and subscribe button if you're not liked and subscribed. Let me know how it's going and what it is you want to chat about. We're chatting today about the changing ways in which Freemasons communicate with each other. Even since I joined in 2007, at that time it was primarily email. Now it's primarily social media, with email in like a second spot. And the use of postage just dropping to, almost nothing. What does that mean for Freemasonry, and does that present a potential opportunity for Freemasons to reconsider taking advantage of postal services to create a more personal feeling between membership, between especially lodge administration and members? Would you be more likely, for example, actually here, I'm going to make that the poll question. I think that's a better question, better way to put it. Thank you, Stickman. I truly appreciate it. By the way, if you want to talk about anything outside of the main subject, by all means, just ask away. I can't promise I'll know all the answers. If you received a personal invitation in the mail for an event, are you more likely to attend? I should have to say this. We are not. I wish we were, because I would have way more fun. We can't even often control what we have for dinner, let alone the world. But no, sadly, we are not controlling the world. It would be, and again, if we are, no one's told me, and I'd be very disappointed that I still have to pay taxes and things. To what type of invitation are you more likely to RSVP? Respond. Snail mail, postage. Depends on the Freemason. I am not, and I'm a Freemason. I am not even a little bit. Freemasonry welcomes men of all kind of what's we're looking for, of all jobs and occupations. So we have lawyers, we have custodians, we have plumbers, we have investors, we have, and everything in between. Some, and by the way, in some plumbers can be quite rich. So we have all different ranks. I don't know any personally. I don't know any like obscenely rich Freemasons. I know some Masons who are well off, and I know some Masons who are struggling financially. So really, it just depends on the Mason himself. But Freemasonry does not discriminate based on the wealth of an individual in either direction. I don't believe so. I've never heard that he is. I hope he's not, because I'm no fan of Andrew Tate. That's not to say it's impossible, I guess, but I have never seen any evidence or heard that he is a Freemason. How old is the organization? Depends how you want to define it. I go with 1717 because it's a simple date. It's easy to remember. That is when the Grand Lodge of England formed. June, I used to know the exact day. I think June 4th, 1717, but I might have that day wrong. But the year was 1717, the month was June. That is when the Grand Lodge of England formed. Now, Freemasonry itself, you could push it back a little bit to 1623, which is when in Scotland, in Rose Hall, the first speculative Masons joined. Well, again, depends on how, they're different. There's two schools of thought. I am of the view that Freemasonry comes from England because I think you need to start with the formation of the Grand Lodge of England, which was in England in 1717. Some would say it comes from Scotland, Rose Hall Chapel, which is when the first speculative Mason joined the operative lodge. So you can kind of pick your date. I go with 1717 though, again. So I would say yes, Freemasons come from England. Masonry itself, the on which Freemasonry is formed, which is the, shaping and molding of stone. You could argue that originated in Africa 3 and some odd million years ago when the first hominid ancestor bashed stones together to form a stone tool, which I would argue is the formation of stone masonry. But Freemasonry, I believe the simplest explanation and the one I go with, Freemasonry originated in England in 1717. So Freemasons so are the Freemasons connected to Satan or the Illuminati's? We are not. So starting with the latter and starting with that one, it's funny, the Illuminati it's funny that we always get connected with them or tied into them. The Illuminati were actually started as an anti-Masonic group. The founder of the Illuminati, and I always forget his name, was originally a Freemason, and he grew to dislike Freemasonry. A, because he thought it was too expensive to be a member, and B, he felt it was too esoteric in its it wasn't esoteric enough or mystical enough. He wanted more of that. So he started the Illuminati hoping to actually kind of steal membership from Freemasonry because he didn't like it. Which is kind of an interesting kind of thing, and it became like people assumed they were the same thing, but we're not, and we're not connected to Satan. Why would you become a Freemason? Well, that depends on the individual, and there are approximately, this is just approximate, 850,000 Masons in the United States, so there are 850 different reasons to become a Freemason. I can tell you in general, some of the broad reasons people join is because they have a family connection and want to carry on that connection. That might be the reason that they join, but it's not going to be the reason they stay. And also, you don't need to have that. I have a family connection. My dad and grandparents are both Freemasons, but you don't need it. But some people join for that reason. Some people join because they want to be part of a group. They want to meet new people that they've never met before and form kind of bonds of friendship and brotherhood. You often see this, amongst newer Canadians, newer Americans, the joining of a Masonic lodge, because if they've immigrated to the country, they're looking to create some friends and a sense of community quickly. You can find that in Freemasonry. Again, some are just looking for a sense of brotherhood. The two great boom periods in Freemasonry, in terms of membership numbers, was the 1920s and 1950s. In both of those cases, it was men joining after the war, looking to recapture a sense of brotherhood. you may join because you want to serve your community and you think Freemasonry is a way to do that. We have to be honest, Stickman. Unfortunately, some people who fall for conspiracy theories or traps on the internet will join because they believe that by being a Freemason you have access to wealth or power, or you can control the world. Unfortunately, they're joining for the wrong reasons and they're going to become very disappointed very quickly. I'm not, or some, well, sure. I mean, there's online. You got to be careful though, because people will make up nonsense online. But there are some celebrities or presidents who are in the organization historically. There have been, depending on how you define who is a Freemason, because it gets kind of tricky at a certain point. But George Washington was a Freemason. Um, uh, Theodore Roosevelt was a Freemason. FDR was a Freemason. Harry Truman was a Freemason. In Canada, John Diefenbaker was a Freemason. In terms of celebrities, Brad Paisley. Well, Stickman, I hope I answered your questions well, at least. Let me know if I did, or if you have any more. I hope it was informative. Um, just a quick message to somebody. But going back to what I was talking about, I do hope that at least maybe I gave you some ideas. And again, I think a Masonic letter writing campaign, there's a reason why political parties, not to bring politics into it, but there's a reason why political parties are still sending letters, actual physical letters to their membership asking for donations, things like that, because people still respond to physical letters, and sometimes they respond more to them than they respond uh, to email. You are welcome. Oh, so we got 3 votes. If you were to, to what type of invitation are you more likely to respond, RSVP? So that's interesting. Snail mail postage got 1 vote. Social media direct message got 1 vote. Email got 1 vote. So that's really fascinating just to see the different types of voting. And again, though, in the last poll, 0% picked mail as how they're getting information from their lodge. And in this poll, one person said they're more likely to respond if they get snail mail. Um, so I think that's a really important and valuable thing to keep in mind, right? Maybe we're missing an opportunity. We're going to give it a bit more time. We're going to see who else joins us, as always. What fictional movies are out there that are Masonically? I mean, From Hell is always one I go to. But From Hell, there was Dislodge, which was a Psych episode, not a movie, but a TV show called Psych. I mean, the square and compasses, those symbols, they pop up all over the place. They was in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I thought was really, really cool. So, you know, these things, these symbols pop up. A lot of times, it's just a way for like a set designer or a costume designer to um, kind of add a little bit of color or some type of interesting thing to a character, make them a little bit more interesting. If you have a character and add, if you have a character and you give them a Masonic ring, maybe it makes the character a little more interesting to the audience, um, even if Freemasonry is never mentioned directly. Just having that, Man Who Will Be King is the classic example of Freemasonry in movies. Just having that, character with that symbol on, though, can add something to a movie. And I think a lot of people, a lot of characters, a lot of actors and directors will add like a Masonic ring. Um, Therein. So, described, question mark, update. Welcome. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope you enjoyed today's topic. Once again, that topic was about Freemasonry and communication. With the strike action, potential strike on May 23rd of Canada Post here in Canada, which is our postal service, it got me thinking about the ways in which we as Freemasons communicate with each other. Um, and I think there's a lot of value in both considering the ways in which it's changed, even since I joined. The increase in communication through social media channels and the decrease in communication through email is fascinating. And, the continual decrease in communication through mail is fascinating. And I think the other key thing to keep in mind with this is, the potential missed opportunities that we as Freemasons have when it comes to failing to communicate through postage. Again, if in those studies I was citing, 74% of Americans look forward to receiving a letter, look forward to opening the mail from a friend. Appreciate getting personally addressed letters. Again, I think maybe twice a year it would be worth Masonic lodges investing in some nice paper, investing in some, nice envelopes, maybe a wax seal to make it extra special, and handwriting out and sending out some personalized postage to the entire membership. Maybe it will encourage more engagement once again. Even to those members who get things via electronically and via email and via social media, I still think it might be worth it, in my humble opinion. All right, so let us, and I did share, and maybe I'll share it one more time. I could find it here. The article I wrote on this topic, which again, Masonic postage stamps. So I'm going to share the link one more time on social media. If I could find it once more. Goodbye, Dad. Thank you for being here. Let me know if your lodge ever considers doing a mail send out. And I hope everybody, though, is doing well. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button if you are just joining the stream. I do these streams every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, where I talk about Freemasonry and different subjects therein, different ways I think that we as Freemasons can improve the Masonic experience for ourselves as well as for our membership. So please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. I've got a lot of really exciting interviews coming up, by the way. There's a new interview to be dropped on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be sharing some of those links to the Premier page shortly, but make sure you check that out. And let me know in the meantime anything that you want to chat about when it comes to Freemasonry. Any thoughts you have, positive, negative, or neutral, I would, as always, love to hear them. Even those who have negative views on Freemasonry, you know what? That's okay. I still would love to hear what your thoughts are, and maybe even how you came to those thoughts. We have in the past, it would be what would you go? I mean, I would do anything. I don't even think it needs to be necessarily, and honestly, I don't think it needs to be necessarily a Masonic movie. If you're going to do a movie night, like we've done, for example, Christmas parties where it's been, we've watched Elf in the ballroom. So like there are a lot of different movies that I think you could watch, and that would be a lot of fun, right? Like you could do a Christmas event and watch Elf. You could do a Halloween event and watch scary movies. You could do, um, oh my gosh. So, you could do a summer movie and watch, like you could do, so it doesn't have to be Masonic per se, right? I think that is kind of the key. Is sometimes when we think about things like doing a Masonic movie night, our tendency is to pick a movie that has Masonic references in it, but I think you should kind of focus your goal. Um, I think your goal should be to pick a movie that will be entertaining, that the audience who's coming out, if you've invited Masons or families or kids or adults or whatever it is, will themselves enjoy, right? I think that kind of has to be the key. You start there and then you kind of move forward um, from there, as opposed to picking movies. And again, if you have an audience, if you're Masons and you think that your audience is going to want to watch a movie that has Masonic references, then yeah, maybe that is the best place to go. But I don't think it has to be that, if that makes any sense at all. Welcome. I hope everybody is, as always, doing well. If you are just joining, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. And now we're kind of at that stage where it's just a matter of seeing who's going to join, what they want to chat about, what they want to talk about. And kind of just hanging out. Mage Fong. Hello, how's it going? Thank you for being here. I hope that you are doing well. I believe you've been on the stream before, if I'm not mistaken. If not, please take a moment. We met at Morton Grove, and okay. I love Morton Grove. I love the fact that Morton Grove also is going to be having its installation on, I guess, coming up soon. It is a great lodge in a great place, right? It is an absolutely awesome lodge. I mean, and also again in an awesome place. I love Glenview, but I love specifically the Glenview Masonic Temple. It's a beautiful building, and I hope that you are excited. I'm looking forward to the installation. Um, I'm not positive yet, but I'm thinking of it. I'm thinking I may make it. Um, because it's a 5 hour trip from, um 5 hour trip approximately from Windsor to Chicago, and add an extra like 40 minutes to get to Glenview, 30 to 40. So it's not crazy far. Buses go there all the time. So it's on my list. I'm not positive, but I'm hoping to. Because again, you guys are credit, and the work that you guys have done, by the way, has been absolutely incredible. I think a a lot of people in Morton Grove deserve a ton of respect for the work they've done in regrowing that lodge. I know it was kind of struggling for a bit, but yeah, nothing but respect for Morton Grove. I will for sure. Um, and again, if you follow me on social media, then you can kind of pay attention to my stuff there. Because when I'm find myself in Morton Grove or in Glenview, I should say, it's finding its way onto social media. Quite quickly. You can even follow me on Patreon. You can follow for free, but that's a great way to keep up with what I'm doing also. If I was coming back on the 8th, it'd be coming back on the 8th in the morning and then taking off, kind of in the evening, or maybe staying overnight. Welcome if you are just joining us. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Once again, it's patreon.com/square and compass. Helps me to do these streams. By the way, we were asking earlier, the reason today's topic was on, thank you so much, was on communication between membership and lodges. Before you go, if you can let us know in the chat, how do you mostly communicate with your Masonic lodge? Is it through email, through social media, or through snail mail? Or like, what's the way you get most of your communications? Just sending quick messages to somebody. Seeing if I can get some more people to join our chat. But thank you everybody who's joined so far. Thank you to my good friend from Morton Grove. And I hope everybody is doing well. We talked again about communication. Yeah, well, I should. I mean, that is on my list of things I want to do, is share not just my Masonic plaques, but my Masonic everything. My Masonic plaques, my Masonic pins, my Masonic coins. Okay. Yes, I'm just trying to organize because I have to gather all the stuff and then figure out the best way to film it and make sure that I'm filming it. Probably wouldn't be filming it um, on my mobile because it'd be reversed. So I have to film it on the laptop. So it would be kind of interesting. to do, but I think, and I have so many. I'm incredibly lucky. Sometimes when I think about my Masonic career, I want to remember wonderful parts of the Masonic career. What I always end up thinking of is my, all of the different pins and plaques and coins and really cool stuff. Mugs, like I've got quite the Masonic collection, so it would be worth sharing 100%. Oh, 5 votes. To what type of invitation are you most likely to RSVP? Respond. Social media direct message is at 40%. So it looks like 2, 2, and 1. Telephone is at 0, which is interesting. Welcome though. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. And let me know how you're doing. And let me know if you want to answer the poll question. We were talking about the ways in which we as Freemasons communicate with our membership. Peace, peace. Welcome, Rondo. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know. I don't know how much you heard of the stream up to now, but let me know if you, we're talking about communication. Let me know what the ways in which you mostly communicate with people now. Do you still use, regular postage or snail mail at all? Or is it more telephone, internet, social media? Like, what are the ways in which you are mostly communicating with people in 2025? Oh, 6 votes to the RSVP question. 1 telephone. Interesting. So one person, maybe it's the personal nature of receiving a telephone call that could be resulting in like that one answer. It's interesting that social media seems to be the highest, maybe because social media is so ubiquitous. I mean, I probably use all forms, but the best way to get me would be a DM or a phone call. Okay. So that makes sense. And I think, again, from a Masonic perspective, we're thinking about this as a Masonic lodges, and we are trying to think of the best way to get responses from our membership, right? So what is the way that we can maximize the efficiency of our communications to our members to ensure we get response? I'm ecstatic today. Research Center, I mean, congratulations. The free researching space is awesome. So I wish you the best of luck in your researches. And, as someone who I've always said Freemasonry, one thing that we as Freemasons should be doing and caring about is research and study and science. So nothing but respect for you. And I wish you the best of luck in your pursuits. DM. That's a good point. And we are seeing a lot of lodges move from email to like WhatsApp, single direct messages, Twitter blasts, things like that. So it's tough. But I think a paper trail is important as well because that's one of the biggest challenges I've noticed with organizing events. If you're trying to organize or RSVP for somebody, one of the biggest challenges that you're going to face is keeping track. Because if you have 7 or 8 people responsible for the selling of tickets, it's going to be really, really tough to know. So then you come to the meeting date or the event date, the dinner, whatever it is, and you have no idea how many people are coming. So a paper trail is actually really, really, really important. You kind of need it. Drinking a clearly Canadian sparkling water beverage. Okay, Canada Dry Ginger Ale. Canada Dry Ginger Ale is awesome. I don't get me wrong, I love it. So, I also like tonic water a fair bit. I like all that stuff. But I hope everybody watching this is doing well. My day is going well. It is going very, very well. It's been a great stream as always. I hope that this gave some people some ideas on the ways in which they can encourage communication amongst their membership or encourage more effective or efficient communication amongst their membership. I am probably going to be ending this stream soon. I'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern with another stream. Not sure what the topic will be yet, but if you have any ideas, let me know. I'd love to hear what your thoughts might be or what you want to hear me talk about. I can't guarantee I'll get to everything, but once I know, I will, if I know, I will do my best to make sure you guys know as soon as I can what the topics will be. As well as, don't forget, on Sunday, we have a new episode being released on our podcast. And tomorrow I have another interview. We're going to be talking about science. I'm looking forward to it very much. I'll keep you guys informed on that as well. So thank you guys so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Good. I'm glad that you've learned a ton, Courtney, and I'm glad that you are here and part of the stream and part of the chat. All right. Thank you guys, though, so much. I think I'm going to call this stream off for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, as always, hit like, hit subscribe, and thank you guys so much.